Hey everyone, I'm Max, welcome to Spec Guide. There's some big news that's been happening in the world of, honestly, electric vehicles in general lately when it comes to charging. So you might see here, got my Polestar 2 and then my friend Ryan's Tesla Model 3. And these cars use different charging connectors, they operate on different charging networks, but the future is looking like a little more interoperability. And there's a lot of interesting kind of things that are about to happen. So let's explain to you what's going on here where we have Tesla superchargers, why these are so fantastic, and why it looks like the charging wars are about to begin. So the most common kind of connector for most electric vehicles that are not Tesla is what I've got on my Polestar 2. It's the circle here. This is referred to in the industry as a J1772. When you're on a road trip, when you fast charge, you use a station like Electrify America, EVgo, you unplug this and you use these what are called direct current pins to fast charge. And fast charging an EV is a game changer for road trips. It's what makes them possible, honestly. Modern CCS technology, that's the name of this port, combined charging system, lets you charge at like rates of 350 kilowatts really quickly. It's actually not that expensive. It's a lot more expensive than charging at home, but it's actually cheaper than gas most of the time, which is really cool. However, you might have heard that a lot of people really rave about Tesla's charging, and this is because Tesla has more of a proprietary vertical integrated system, but nonetheless a system that has worked remarkably well over the years. It begins with a lot of things, but let's start with the connector because that's the most obvious physical difference. So there's no way, I don't know if Ryan could maybe open his, on his phone app, he can open his charge port. But you can see on a Tesla that they integrate their charge port into the tail lamp, like so. And look at how small that connector is. That is the Tesla connector, which they recently, quote unquote, opened up and called NACS, or the North American Charging Standard. The beauty of this connector is it does home charging over alternating current and direct charging in this one connector. There's no extra DC pins, there's no bulk, and you notice this in the cables. I'll maybe flash some images of cables here, but CCS cables generally, the ones that charge cars like my Polestar, are way bigger and chunkier than Tesla cables. They're harder to manage, to be honest. Like if I'm filming with a phone in one hand, or for disabled users or people who have hands occupied, it's a real burden to actually use those cables. I think it's a legitimate accessibility issue. So in that respect alone, Tesla wins. But it goes beyond the cable. It really, I think the brilliance of Tesla supercharging has a lot to do with the network. And we have to separate these two concepts because they get confused by people all the time. The Tesla supercharging network and the Tesla North American Charging Standard are not exactly the same thing. And recently you might have heard news that Ford is adopting both, sort of. So current Ford vehicles are, I think, very imminently going to be able to use 12,000, which is about half of the existing Tesla supercharging network, 12,000 chargers, through the use of an adapter that I believe either Tesla will build in the form of an adapter built into the station, or an adapter I think that are also going to ship to customers that will convert this connector into that chunkier CCS connector for the existing Ford F-150 Lightning and Mustang Mach-E. Now, there's a lot of questions about this. Is this going to mean that other cars can charge at Tesla superchargers? Well, this is already the case. At several sites in New York and around the country, Tesla has added these adapters for CCS, and any car can charge there. So I'm guessing there might be some kind of verification, maybe exclusivity for Ford in terms of the rapid rollout of supercharging, but I think the long term is pretty obvious. Tesla wants its supercharger network to be an open, more or less network, and they're going to charge non-Tesla drivers, I'm sure, higher fees. There may be, we don't know on the back end, other kind of schemes or royalty mechanisms, of course, because Tesla deserves to make money with its own technology. So Tesla really has, I think, demonstrated they have a superior charging port, and they've also just built out a better network. You might have heard that Electrify America, EVgo, ChargePoint, all of these large scale charging operators have many issues with reliability. We're seeing lots of uptime woes. Just this morning, a lot of the US actually had really big issues with Electrify America, like continent-wide. A lot of stations seem to be down on the app. Seems like it's getting resolved fairly quickly, but I don't know if it was software, if it was chargers, but this is not uncommon. And especially when it happens on Memorial Day weekend, travel weekends, it's a super stressful thing to happen on road trips. Tesla superchargers not only have lighter cables, they're more reliable. There's just so many of them. You can follow the Tesla Charging Twitter account and see that they're rolling out, building new stations basically every day. Actually, there's several a day. It's insane. Globally, they are just expanding these stalls. They have more stalls. You can see at this site, I believe there's 10 roughly stalls, whereas the Electrify America site in the same mall has 4. So huge difference, paradigm shifting there. And Tesla clearly is building out the scale, I think not just for their own vehicles, but for everyone, because they're going to make money on charging. And the reason I'm pretty confident in this is not just the rollout of the adapter, but in Europe, Tesla cannot use this connector under the tail lamp, the NACS. They're not allowed to use it because Europe mandates the CCS. So they have a slightly different form of CCS, just slightly different, same overall shape, some different connectors. But that's what's common in Europe, and Tesla is forced to use that in their vehicles. I don't think they like it very much, but they have to. And so for that reason, the benefit of that is it made Tesla's rollout of superchargers in Europe, which started in, I think, in Norway and now is basically continent-wide, it's made it fairly easy. It's more of a software backend thing than actually needing an adapter, changing the connectors. So that exists in Europe already. Lots of CCS drivers, or sorry, non-Tesla car drivers in Europe enjoy Tesla supercharging. And even in Europe, where everyone's on the same connector, they still enjoy the reliability of the Tesla network. It's not to say that Tesla network is amazing for every car. Tesla's obviously proven they can do it for their cars really well, but we're seeing charging issues with the current adapters on higher voltage cars like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Lucid Air. It's kind of like Apple versus Android. The benefits of a closed, integrated ecosystem are you can ensure a dead amount of reliability. But hey, if Tesla can even provide a half of what they've done for their own customers and vehicles to everyone else using their network, I think that's going to be game-changing. So following up on Ford's announcement, I think dominoes are going to fall. To be honest, when we're filming this video, I'm going to give it a few hours. If there's more announcements, I'll edit those in here. But right now, it feels like there's a deafening silence over the auto industry. Really, the whole auto industry, not just EVs, because right, EVs are everything now, or they're going to become everything. And so everyone is kind of wondering who's going to be next, what other chips are going to fall. This Ford news is a big deal, and I really don't think it's going to be restricted to just Ford in the future. So for you to know as a consumer is that you'll probably be okay buying a CCS vehicle now, but it remains true and has been true that one of the biggest advantages of getting a Tesla is that integration with superchargers built into the car software, no adapter needed. Looks like there's probably going to be an adapter. I guess they've announced it, right? That at least works with Ford products. I'm guessing a generic adapter to come pretty shortly, maybe a software update to enable that. Already, Ryan can charge his Tesla at any CCS station by virtue of a Tesla to CCS adapter. So now we're just going to get an adapter in the other direction, which is going to be great. So basically, the good news is that I think in the next few years, charging is going to be interoperable universally. The bad news is, well, if I was one of the charge point operators who wasn't Tesla, I would realize that now is the time to really seriously step up my game, because Tesla has been, I think, humiliating them time and time again. And with this big news, this rollout with Ford, and I'm sure more partners to come, well, I'm not going to say CCS and charge point operators' days are numbered, but clearly there's a ticking time bomb under them, a lot of pressure. Things are going to happen in the charging world very quickly. One more thing, Ryan behind the camera who's been filming me, as a Tesla owner, Ryan, what do you think of this kind of rollout to non-Tesla cars?
Absolutely. Here, I can hand you the camera. I think ultimately it's a good thing. As a Tesla owner, truthfully, it's only bad, I think. These chargers are going to get more crowded, more people will use them. It'll be more difficult for me as a Tesla owner to use it. Technically, it's more convenient to have it exclusive. But I think that's really narrow-minded. It's a really horrible way to look at it. I think the more competition we have in the charging space, the better. Regardless of whether it's Electrify America, EVgo, ChargePoint, Tesla, Shell Recharge, there's a million of them. The more that we have and the better they are, the better we all are. So ultimately, I think it's a great decision. It'll be really interesting to see how other manufacturers react to this news, to see if we start to see this happen more often. Perhaps we'll see more adapters. Perhaps we'll see other manufacturers moving to Tesla. It'll be really interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah, the clear question here is why would someone buy a Tesla vehicle? The vehicles may have their own advantages, but there's plenty of other great vehicles in the market if charging is the same. And
Absolutely.
My suspicion is it's not going to be the same, Ryan. You're probably going to end up paying a cheaper rate for that electricity at superchargers. There's still benefit, I think, to the integration in the Tesla software with how it can tell you when superchargers are occupied, when they're down. Of course, this functionality is theoretically built into a lot of electric cars, the quote-unquote real-time status, but Tesla, with their end-to-end network, has really been the only one to, I think, make it work reliably.
Yeah, they're very reliable, very trustworthy as far as their app and navigation. You can really trust what's going on there. It's a really positive thing. I'm happy with the direction it's heading.
Yeah. Well, also, Ryan, we haven't shown people how to actually plug in. So let's plug in a supercharger.
Let's do it. Let's hop in the car real quick.
Ryan, so with a Tesla, it seems like you just back into these, and that's another question, right? I think they're going to have to do something with these cables to make them longer, because lots of different cars have their charge ports in all sorts of different places.
Right. So this is definitely a very short cable. It won't reach many more cars unless they have a port very, very similar to where this is, or in the front passenger side. So plugging in a Tesla is extremely easy. You just pull the cable out, you press the button near that, and you plug in. That's it. It turns blue, it's thinking about it, and once it's charging, it will turn green.
We should mention this. There we go. It's green. These are V2, so this is some of the oldest, Tesla hardware still around. The newer stations, I think, have even quicker activation times, quicker charge speeds on vehicles that are capable of it. So they're improving this hardware all the time. Do you know when broadly V2s were starting to roll out?
Excellent question. I'm actually not certain.
I think several years ago, though.
It's been several years.
It still feels like this charging hardware is ahead of a lot of the generic charging hardware we see from other manufacturers and other charge point operators that they provide. So really amazing experience. The cable is so much smaller than CCS cable.
Yeah.
Really nice there.
As you mentioned, I think it's a huge accessibility thing. People who maybe have some sort of physical disability, perhaps arthritis, older people. There's a bunch of different reasons why you may not be able to as easily wrangle that CCS cord.
And
I think this is a good alternative.
Absolutely. And people can find videos on this channel of activating ChargePoint, Electrify America, and EVgo. With this Tesla, you didn't really have to activate. How's it working?
That was it. It's all done through the car, through the app. So I'm charged automatically on my credit card, and that'll show up in my account. But beyond that, all I do is plug in, and when I'm done, I just unplug. And I think that brings me to that point that you brought up a bit earlier with the advantages that Tesla has. I think you're absolutely right. By opening up this charging network, it is taking away one of the huge advantages that Tesla has, but it doesn't completely eliminate it. I think we'll still see some really great charging speeds with Tesla, the fast activation times, as you mentioned, different charging costs as well. So I think that there still will be some advantages that Tesla can maintain, but I think it will level the playing field quite a bit.
For sure. And if someone plugs in a non-Tesla vehicle right now through a station that has Magic Dock, they basically need to use the Tesla app to activate it. It's a bit of a clunkier process. We're honestly, I don't think, still 100% sure about how Ford is going to do it. It sounds like the integration will be a bit more seamless. They might tie in what we now know as plug and charge into Tesla superchargers. So the similar experience is, granted to non-Tesla users, you plug in on the back end your build. The only difference being that back end is going to be Ford Pass instead of Tesla.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. They'll be using Ford Pass. And I think that they should make it pretty seamless. But you do bring up a good point in that activating a Tesla supercharger with a non-Tesla vehicle, you got to go through the app, and it's really not any easier to activate than, say, Electrify America or EVgo. You got to jump through all the steps, find the right charger, all that stuff. So not perfect, but again, I think the reliability of these chargers is one of the greatest things that they have to offer.
Absolutely. More to come on that, but thanks so much for joining me today, Ryan. And to end this video off, why don't we show people how to unplug it?
Absolutely. So once you're done, you just press the button, you hear the contactors click, eventually.
Charging isn't exactly simple no matter where you go, but we'll say Tesla has far fewer issues than anyone else.
There
we go. Yep, close like that.
Cool.
Well, see everyone next time.
See ya.